Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye orders thorough follow-up measures on THAAD following the announcement of the location for the U.S. missile defense system. As widely expected, Korea's central bank holds the key interest rate steady at 1.25%. It also cuts this year's growth forecast to 2.7%. First, Theresa May has taken over as Britain's new Prime Minister. She says the UK will forge a bold new role for itself outside of the European Union. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 14th of July. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We are going to begin this lunchtime at the presidential office of Cheongwa-dae. President Park Geun-hye chaired a National Security Council meeting prior to her departure to Mongolia for the ASEM summit. This morning, when she spoke about Seoul and Washington's selected location for the U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD. Now, during the meeting, President Park said the location was selected with the utmost discretion and analysis. She also said the chosen location, Seongju in Gyeongsang-Buk-do province, will best complement Seoul's own missile defense system and cover the greatest amount of area possible. The president called on the nation to support the decision and unite for the sake of national security. She said it's time to stop the unnecessary controversy and vowed to listen to residents in the selected location of Seongju. President Park will take off for Ulaanbaatar later this afternoon to attend the Asia-Europe Meeting Summit and for an official visit to Mongolia, where she will seek support and cooperation on South Korea's efforts to curb North Korea's nuclear ambitions. The Bank of Korea has left its key rate unchanged at 1.25%. The rate freeze comes as the central bank has its hands full with a range of issues at home and abroad. Hwang Jie reports.
Korea's central bank has taken a wait-and-see approach for July, standing pat on its record low key rate of 1.25%. The decision, announced after its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday, was widely expected, as the central bank has never lowered the key rate for 2 straight months. The Bank of Korea cut the benchmark rate by 25 basis points just last month, ending almost a year of holding rates steady. That was a surprise decision few had been expecting. Analysts had been forecasting that the BOK would keep its rate unchanged for July, as the central bank wants to see whether the government's stimulus package laid out late last month helps lift the economy. The government's measure includes an extra budget worth around $8.5 billion. But with the economy still suffering from sluggish demand at home and abroad and a handful of uncertainties continuing to threaten growth, changes are expected down the line. Most experts project another 0.25 percentage point rate cut towards the end of this year. External conditions that could further drag on Korea's growth have recently increased due to Britain's decision to leave the European Union. Brexit has also fueled expectations of more monetary easing by major economies like Japan, giving more leeway for Korea to join the global move. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
And while the central bank held its rate steady, it cut its growth outlook for the Korean economy for this year to 2.7%. Its previous growth projection, released in April, was 2.8%. The downgrade comes as the economy is suffering under the weight of lingering uncertainties that analysts cite as reasons for a rate cut down the road, as well as the government's recent corporate restructuring drive, which could put a dent in domestic consumption. The corporate overhaul is expected to result in massive layoffs in the country's key industries like shipping and shipbuilding. Government officials are taking questions from lawmakers on the issue of allocating this year's multi-billion-dollar supplementary budget. Continuing their special committee on budget and accounts on this Thursday, lawmakers from the ruling and opposition parties have been quizzing officials on the amount of money to be set aside for young Koreans' education and childcare, as well as how to set up the extra government budget for this year. The Finance Ministry says the government and the ruling Seongju party will go over the details of the extra budget plan on Friday. Although the details have yet to be ironed out, the Finance Ministry is expected to submit its plan to the National Assembly by the end of this month. Now, in international news, Theresa May has taken over as Britain's next new Prime Minister, heading straight to 10 Downing Street after meeting Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace. The 59-year-old is Britain's second female Prime Minister and replaces David Cameron, who stepped down after losing the referendum on Britain's EU membership. Park Jung-hong has the details.
The UK has ushered in a new British Prime Minister. Theresa May, in her inaugural remarks as Britain's second female PM in history, vowed to lead a one-nation government that works for everyone.
We will rise to the challenge. As we leave the European Union, we will forge a bold, new, positive role for ourselves in the world. And we will make Britain a country that works not for a privileged few, but for every one of us.
She said it would be her mission to, quote, build a better Britain. In a bold move upon taking office, Theresa May was quick to appoint Boris Johnson, the prominent yet controversial Leave EU campaigner, as her foreign secretary. She sacked Finance Minister George Osborne, replacing him with Philip Hammond. May also named David Davis the Secretary of State for exiting the EU, a newly created position. Liam Fox has the role as Secretary of State for International Trade, a pivotal position as Britain finds itself having to sign a slew of new trade deals. Hoping to unite a divided nation after the referendum, Theresa May's new cabinet lineup is seen to reflect a good balance of figures who had either opposed or endorsed the Brexit initiative. Park Jung-hong, Arirang News.
Now, although North Korea's most recent attempt to launch a ballistic missile from a submarine was seen as a failure, the regime seems to be making advances with the technology, and leader Kim Jong-un seems determined to make it a success. One US expert says the North could even be ready to conduct a full test within a year. Kwon So-ah has the details.
North Korea's submarine-launched ballistic missile tests have repeatedly ended in what observers regard as failures. But experts say that doesn't mean the regime isn't making progress with the technology. Speaking at a briefing organized by North Korea monitoring site 38 North, U.S. military expert Joseph Bermudez said Pyongyang seems to be taking small steps forward with each test.
I would expect them, given what we see so far, that they will attempt or will succeed at a full-range test sometime in the next 12 months.
North Korea's SLBM test from its eastern port city of Sinpo last week was deemed unsuccessful because it just flew some 30 kilometers and exploded in mid-air at an altitude of roughly 10,000 meters. But Bermudez suggested that the North could be limiting the distance on purpose. He also said North Korea's leader seems to be determined to make a success of the tests.
These tests are important to understanding both the seriousness with which the Kim Jong-un regime takes the development of a submarine-launched ballistic missile.
He also said, however, North Korea is facing some big challenges with its SLBM development, namely quality control and system integration. He warned that when fully developed, Pyongyang's SLBM capability will pose a significant security threat to the U.S. and its regional allies, as the missiles could then be launched from different locations. North Korea has conducted several SLBM tests since 2014 and 2 this year. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The U.S. economy continued to expand at a modest pace from mid-May through the end of June, but showed little indication of inflation pressure. According to the Federal Reserve's Beige Book released on Wednesday, the outlook was Generally positive across economic segments like manufacturing, retail sales and real estate. Labour market conditions improved in June, but wage pressures remained modest to moderate and price pressures remained slight, showing little sign of moving up to the Fed's inflation target rate of 2%. The Beige Book report is used as baseline data for the Fed's policymakers. The Federal Open Market Committee is widely expected to keep US rates on hold when it meets in under 2 weeks' time. Now today, July 14th, is an extremely special day for Arirang TV, the channel you're watching now. Exactly 1 year ago, we became the first Korean broadcaster to be included on the UN's in-house network, and this means Arirang TV is broadcast at UN headquarters with international news channels like BBC World, Al Jazeera and CNN International. Park Ji-won reports from New York.
This is the United Nations headquarters in New York, where hundreds of UN officials and tourists busily come and go every day. And in one corner of the lobby near the front gate, there's a screen attached on the wall, and look, it's broadcasting Arirang TV. It's been a year since Korea's global broadcaster that reaches over 120 million households worldwide was designated as one of the UN headquarters in-house network channels. UN officials can watch these in-house channels while they work at their desks.
As you can see here, each desk is equipped with a monitor showing the UN's in-house network channels, including Arirang TV.
Under the channel name Korea Arirang, Arirang TV is one of only 19 UN in-house channels, along with international broadcasters like CNN and BBC World, and major American news networks like NBC and ABC. The UN's Under-Secretary General Christina Gallag explains that Arirang TV brings greater regional diversity to the UN's lineup of channels.
It is very important that the channels that are broadcasted internally do represent the key actors in the international community, different regions in the world, and help to open us to new different cultures and economic and social issues.
Veteran journalist Gianpaolo Pioli, who has been covering the UN for the past 31 years as a resident correspondent, says he sometimes gets help from Arirang TV.
I used to have my screen at the UN split on 4 with the internal television, and one of the 4 channels is Arirang. Why? Well, because I need a different point of view, especially if I follow a story about North Korea or South Korea. I consider your channel.
The ambassador and permanent representative of South Korea to the United Nations hopes Arirang TV keeps playing an important role at the UN.
As Arirang TV can be viewed by diverse UN member states and the employees of the UN Secretariat, I hope the channel makes the most of the opportunity and maintains the quality of its content.
Arirang TV will be on the UN's in-house network channel for 5 years. And the partnership will be reviewed when deciding to renew the contract or not. So now it's up to Arirang TV to provide more up-to-date global news and content to ensure it remains one of the UN's go-to channels for decades to come. Park Ji-won, Arirang News, New York.
Now we're going to stick with the UN because the world body, of course, is tasked with setting and maintaining standards for the way countries interact with one another and the world. But how exactly does it operate? To give us some background on the UN as an organisation, its mission and its role in global affairs, here's our Kim Ji-yeon.
The United Nations is an international organization currently made up of 193 member states. It was first established in 1945 following the end of the World War II. Its central mission was to maintain international peace and security by eradicating and preventing conflict, helping parties in conflict make peace, peacekeeping, and creating the conditions to allow peace to take hold and flourish. The UN continues to provide a forum for its members to engage in dialogue and find areas of agreement to solve borderless problems and conflicts in a peaceful manner. The UN also takes action on a broad range of issues, ranging from peace and security, climate change, sustainable development, human rights, disarmament and terrorism, to food security. While its peacekeeping activities are spread out across the globe, its headquarters are located in the U.S. state of New York, and its main offices are in Geneva, Nairobi, and Vienna. The main departments of the UN are the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the Trusteeship Council, the International Court of Justice, and the UN Secretariat. The UN's chief administrative officer is the Secretary General, which is currently occupied by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon from the Republic of Korea. Kim Ji-an, Arirang News.
Now, we're going to wrap up our news bulletin with a brief look at the weather because scorching heat and humid conditions are persisting here in Korea. We must remember that it is mid-July after all, but afternoon highs nationwide are forecast to top 30 degrees Celsius pretty much everywhere. A heatwave watch has been issued in parts of Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces, and there's a 60 to 80% chance of rain over the course of the day, so keep an umbrella handy. Up to 20 millimeters is forecast for inland areas due to atmospheric instability. As for Korea's northeastern coast, there is a heavy rain watch in place there. The humid and rainy conditions are expected to last through Saturday as a monsoonal front gradually moves northward. Well, that's all we have for now on this Thursday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.